Chapter 1. The Midnight Summons. Welcome back to the channel, folks. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We dive deep into the shadows of history's darkest corners, where the line between fact and nightmare blurs. Tonight, we're uncovering secrets buried deeper than you can imagine, inspired by those whispered Vatican rumors that have circulated for centuries. You know, the ones about hidden vaults holding more than just old papers. Based on the kind of true events that make you question everything the Church has ever guarded. Grab your headphones, dim the lights, and let's descend into my scariest discovery as a Vatican archivist. It's the story that still wakes me in sweats, wondering if those gates ever truly close. I've spent 25 years in the Vatican's secret archives, restoring manuscripts that date back to the Crusades. Papal bulls yellowed with age, codices bound in leather that's seen empires rise and fall. People think it's glamorous whispering among shelves that stretch 50 miles underground, handling relics touched by saints. But it's not. It's dust that clings to your lungs like a second skin, the faint scent of incense masking the rot of forgotten ink. You wear gloves to avoid the oils from your fingers degrading the vellum, but sometimes, late at night, you swear the pages breathe. I've repaired Galileo's trial documents, you know, the ones where the Inquisition forced off his words like threats. Historians still debate if the Church truly suppressed his heliocentric proofs, or if there was more to it, something esoteric hidden in the margins. But that's academic stuff. Boring to most. Until it isn't. Nobody calls an archivist unless something's cracked, torn, or worse, exposed. My phone buzzed at midnight, the screen glowing like an accusatory eye in my tiny apartment overlooking the Tiber. The river outside murmured against the stone embankments, a constant hush that Rome never lets you forget. I glanced at the caller ID, Cardinal Voss. Not his secretary, him personally. Voss was old-school Vatican, the kind of man whose robes hid scars from dealings no one spoke of. His voice crackled through the line, dry as parchment. Marco, we have a situation in the apostolic vaults. A sealed crate from the 14th century renovations under St. Peter's. It's compromised. Come now. Alone. I didn't ask questions. In my line, curiosity is a sin you confess later. I threw on my wool coat, the one frayed at the cuffs from years of leaning over desks, and grabbed my kit, magnifying loupe, pH-neutral brushes, archival glue that smells faintly of almonds. The streets were empty as I drove my beat-up Fiat through the Eternal City, past the Colosseum's skeletal silhouette under a moon that hung low and bloated. Vatican City gates loomed ahead, guarded by Swiss guards in their Renaissance uniforms, halberds glinting even at this hour. They waved me through without a word. Voss had cleared it. The archives entrance was a nondescript door in the Belvedere courtyard, hidden behind a tapestry of the Last Judgment. I keyed in my code, the lock clicking like bones settling. Descending the elevator, ironic, now that I think of it, those metal boxes that carry you to hells you didn't book. The air grew cooler, heavy with the weight of centuries. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows on marble floors etched with papal seals. The vaults were a labyrinth, climate controlled to 18 degrees Celsius, humidity locked at 50% to preserve the irreplaceable. But tonight, something felt off. The hum of the dehumidifiers was louder, almost labored, like the machines were straining against an intruder. Cardinal Voss waited at the junction to the restricted section, his face gaunt under the harsh light, eyes sunken behind wire-rimmed spectacles. He clutched a rosary, fingers twitching over the beads. "Marco," he greeted, voice a whisper that echoed too far. The crate was unearthed during seismic retrofitting. Sealed since Pope Boniface VIII's era. You know the scandals there, the disputes with kings that nearly tore the papacy apart. We thought it was just relics. But the lock, it opened on its own this evening. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Superstition wasn't my vice, science was. We walked the corridors, my footsteps muffled on the anti-static carpet, past shelves groaning under tomes that could rewrite history. The air carried that familiar tang of aged paper and frankincense, but undercut with something metallic, like blood on iron. Voss led me to a side chamber, cordoned off with velvet ropes that looked absurdly out of place. There it was, a wooden crate the size of a coffin, reinforced with iron bands rusted to flaking red. Symbols etched into the lid, pentagrams intertwined with Chi-Rho crosses, the kind alchemists used in forbidden texts. "Gloves," Voss muttered, handing me a pair. I snapped them on, the latex cool against my skin. The lid was ajar, just a crack, but enough to let a draft escape, chilly, unnatural, carrying whispers of Latin I couldn't quite catch. I pried it further with a crowbar from my kit, the wood groaning like it resented the intrusion. Inside, nestled in straw yellowed to bone, was a book. Not just any codex. Leather-bound, but the cover, it pulsed faintly, as if a heart beat beneath. Gold leaf lettering spelled Liber Umbrarum, Book of Shadows. Forbidden, even by Vatican standards. I'd heard rumors in scholarly circles, texts like this were purged during the Counter-Reformation, burned in pyres that lit Rome's skies. Academics argue if they held Gnostic heresies or something darker, rituals that blurred faith and folly. Voss crossed himself. "Restore it if you can. Catalog it. But Marco, don't read aloud." I nodded, lifting it carefully. The weight was wrong, heavier than its size, like it dragged secrets with it. Pages of vellum, thick as skin, edges gilded but tarnished. I flipped to the first folio under my portable UV light. Ink shimmered, not faded but alive, shifting under the beam. Illustrations of gates, spiraling down into abysses, souls clawing at the bars. And then, a passage, "Porta inferia peri unter non clavi," said Furbo peccatoris. The gates of hell open not by key, but by the sinner's word. The chamber lights flickered. Once. Twice. Voss didn't notice, or pretended not to. But I felt it, a chill crawling up my spine, the kind that makes your hairs stand like accused heretics before the stake. I closed the book, but the cover warmed in my hands, almost hot. Back in the main reading room, I set it on the felt-covered table, the green cloth absorbing the sound like a confessional. My tools laid out, cotton swabs, distilled water, a scalpel for lifting flakes. As I worked, the archives felt watchful. Shelves creaked without wind. In the distance, St. Peter's bells tolled one, the vibration humming through the floors. I dabbed at a stain on the margin, looked like dried blood, but under magnification, it was ink, sanguine hue from iron gall that oxidizes over time. Historians love that stuff, it's what made medieval manuscripts eternal, or cursed, depending on your view. My mind wandered to my brother, Luca. Dead these 40 years, taken in 83 during what the church called a tragic incident. We were kids in Naples, playing in an old cathedral ruin. He started speaking in tongues, convulsing. Priests came, exorcists, though they denied it later. I watched from the pews as they chanted, holy water sizzling on his skin. He looked at me last, eyes black as this ink, whispering my name. They said heart failure. I knew better. The Vatican hushed it, like so many cases. Debated in theological journals, was it possession, or epilepsy misdiagnosed? The Church still trains exorcists today, over 500 worldwide, but details are sealed tighter than this tome. Shake it off, Marco. Focus. I turned the page. The script writhed, or was it the light? Words in Aramaic, Greek, Latin layered like palimpsests. A diagram of the basilica's foundations, but altered tunnels leading to chambers unmarked on any map. The ninth circle, labeled in red. Dante's influence, sure, but Vatican scholars whisper his Inferno was based on real papal visions, suppressed visions from mystics like Hildegard of Bingen. The warmth spread. My fingers tingled through the gloves. Voss had left me alone, as requested protocol for delicate work. The silence pressed, broken only by the scratch of my brush. Then, a page turned on its own. Slow, deliberate, the vellum rustling like dry leaves in a crypt wind. I froze. Trick of air current? But the vents were sealed. Another page. And another. The book opened fully, splayed like a gutted bird. In the center, fresh ink bloomed, words forming as I watched, Marco Rossi, Peccator et Custos. Desk end. Marco Rossi, sinner and guardian. Descend. The floor trembled faintly, dust sifting from the ceiling like ash from a censer. My heart slammed against ribs. This wasn't restoration. This was invocation. If you've ever handled something forbidden, something that feels alive, you know the pull, the curiosity that damns. Smash that like button if Vatican secrets give you chills, and comment below, would you open a sealed relic at midnight, or walk away before it opens you? Share this video with a friend who loves conspiracies. Let's grow this shadow community. But wait, the pages glowed brighter, and the whispers started. Not in my head. From the book. Chapter 2. Descent into the sealed vault. If you thought the summons was eerie, hang on, things only get deeper from here. Hit that like button if you're already hooked on these Vatican shadows, and subscribe so you don't miss how far this rabbit hole goes. We're talking real whispers from history's underbelly, the kind that make you wonder what else is buried beneath the holy city. Last chapter, that book called my name, literally. Now, as I stare at those glowing pages, let's keep unraveling my nightmare. Based on those archived exorcism logs, the church debates endlessly, were they divine interventions or just hysteria? You decide as we descend. The words hung in the air like incense smoke, desk end, echoing not from speakers but from somewhere inside my skull, a vibration that rattled my teeth. The Liber Umbrarum lay open on the table, its pages no longer flipping but quivering, as if breathing in sync with my pulse. I slammed it shut, the thud echoing through the reading room like a crypt door ceiling. My hands shook, gloves slick with sudden sweat. Cardinal Voss burst back in, his rosary clacking against his belt. "What was that?" he demanded, eyes wide behind those spectacles. "Nothing," I lied, shoving the book into a protective sleeve from my kit. But we both knew. The air had thickened, carrying a new scent, ozone, like before a storm, mixed with the earthy damp of freshly turned soil. Vatican protocol kicked in: seal, report, pray. Voss muttered a Latin benediction, something from the Ritual Romanum, the exorcism manual updated back in '99 but rooted in 1614 rites. Scholars argue its efficacy, some say it's psychological placebo, others claim miracles. Me. I'd seen enough miracles fail. "Take it to the lower vault," Voss ordered. "The sealed one. Restore there isolated. I'll secure permissions." His voice cracked on isolated, and he crossed himself again, fleeing as if the devil nipped his heels. I had no choice. Cradling the tome like a live grenade, I navigated the corridors deeper into the apostolic archives. The Vatican's secret archives aren't just one room, they're a subterranean maze, over 85 kilometers of shelves holding 35,000 volumes of indices alone. Built in 1612 by Pope Paul V to guard against Reformation spies, but rumors persist of older sections pre-Christian catacombs repurposed, tunnels linking to the necropolis where Saint Peter himself is buried. Excavations in the 1940s uncovered pagan graves beneath the basilica. Historians debate if Etruscan rituals influenced early church buryings. The air grew colder with each step, dropping to 15 degrees, the humidity spiking to cling like guilt. An elevator waited ironic transport for a man about to fall. Its brass doors were etched with Vatican keys and tiara, but scarred from centuries. I pressed the button for sub-level 4, the apostolic vaults, restricted even to most cardinals. The cab lurched downward, cables whining like tortured souls. In the mirrored walls, my reflection looked haggard, graying hair tousled, eyes bloodshot from too many nights poring over forbidden texts. The tome warmed against my chest, a heartbeat not mine. Flashback hit me then, unbidden, as the floors ticked by. Naples, 1983. I was 12, Luca 10. We'd snuck into the abandoned Chiesa di San Domenico Maggiore, chasing ghost stories kids tell. Luca found an old reliquary, pried it open. That night, he changed foaming, speaking Aramaic backward. Our parents called the priest, I hid under the bed, hearing the chants, the sizzle of holy water on skin. Luca's eyes rolled white, whispering, "Frater, Desk and Mecum brother, descend with me." He died at dawn. Official cause, epileptic seizure. But the priest vanished, file sealed in Vatican drawers. I've restored similar reports, cases like Gottfried's in the 70s, debated as possession or illness. The Church says 500 exorcists active today, academics call it cultural psychosis. Me. It haunts. The elevator dinged, doors parting to a spiral staircase of ancient stone, worn smooth by monastic feet. No lights here, just my flashlight beam cutting the gloom. The vault door loomed, iron-bound oak, sealed with a papal bull wax impression from Boniface VIII's time that Pope accused of heresy himself, his bull Unam Sanctam claiming universal papal power, still argued in canon law circles. Voss had given me the key, heavy bronze cold as a corpse. Click. The door groaned open, hinges screaming like banshees. Inside, the sealed vault was a chamber forgotten by time, walls lined with frescoes faded to ghosts, depicting the Last Judgment, souls plummeting into flames while angels averted eyes. The air was stale, laced with myrrh and mold, thick enough to chew. Shelves held crates like the one upstairs, labeled in medieval script, Excommunicatio, Haeresis Suppressa. I set the tome on a central pedestal, once an altar, its marble veined with cracks like veins. Work began. Under a battery lamp, I examined the binding human skin. No, calf vellum, but supple unnaturally. Pages whispered as I turned them, faint rustles like distant prayers. The Latin incantation, Port Novem Circuli Aperi Unter Sanguine Custodes, gates of the 9 circles opened by the guardian's blood. Dante's Inferno, sure, but illustrated with maps mirroring the basilica's foundations. Whispers grew audible, soft, layered, like Gregorian chants reversed. I pricked my finger on a page edge, accidental, or not. Blood welled, dripping onto the vellum. Absorbed instantly. The whispers clarified, names. Popes, saints, sinners. Clement V, who dissolved the Templars in 1312 under royal pressure. Historians debate if treasure or secrets were buried here. Then Luca's voice, childlike, Marco, why did you let me go? Hallucination. Exhaustion. I shook it head, but footsteps echoed behind, soft, padding on stone. I spun, flashlight sweeping empty air. Shadows elongated wrong, stretching toward me like inquisitors' fingers. The temperature plummeted, breath fogged. A mural shifted, the damned soul's eyes followed me. Panic rising, I grabbed a scroll from a nearby shelf to compare ink's distraction technique. It unfurled, an exorcism transcript from 1614, detailing a nun levitating, speaking dead languages. Real right, debated effective, or theatrics. But as I read, the words crawled, merging with the tomes. The floor trembled. Dust cascaded. Cracks spider-webbed from the pedestal, glowing faint red. No, I muttered, backing up. The footsteps louder now, circling. Luca's giggle echoed. The ground gave way, a chasm yawning, edges crumbling like stale bread. I teetered, toolbox clattering into abyss. The tome slid toward it, pages fanning. I lunged, grabbing it, but gravity won. We fell, whispers chasing, desk end, desk end. Wind howled past, cold biting skin. Darkness swallowed, but faint lights below eyes. Torches. The descent had begun, and I wasn't alone. Whoa, that drop still gives me shivers recounting it. If echoes from your past ever followed you into the dark, would you keep going or turn back and fight? Drop your thoughts in the comments, let's discuss these Vatican vibes. Share this video if you're team deeper secrets, and smash subscribe for Chapter 3's Whispers. Your engagement keeps these stories alive, just like those pages. Chapter 3. The Whispering Scrolls. The drop ended sooner than physics allowed. My body slammed into a pile of something soft yet crunching, like landing on autumn leaves mixed with brittle bones. Air whooshed from my lungs, stars exploding behind my eyelids. The tome thudded beside me, its cover thudding like a second heartbeat. Darkness pressed absolute, broken only by my flashlight's beam jittering across scrolls. Thousands of them, scattered across a cavernous subvault that shouldn't exist. Not the neat shelves of upstairs, these were chaos, unfurled parchments rolling like waves on a sea of dust. The air hit me next thick, cloying, laced with the acrid tang of frankincense gone rancid and something sweeter, like overripe fruit rotting in a confessional booth. I groaned, pushing up on elbows that screamed protest. My kit was gone, scattered in the fall, but the liber umbrarum lay open, pages glowing faintly as if lit from within. No broken bones, miracle or curse. The chamber stretched endless, walls hewn from tufa rock veined with quartz that caught the light wrong, sparkling like eyes in the gloom. This was deeper than sub-level 4, maybe into the necropolis layers where 1940s digs found Peter's tomb amid pagan sarcophagi. Historians argue those excavations revealed syncretism, early Christians blending Roman rites, but what if they unearthed doors best left shut? A rustle. Not wind, the vents didn't reach here. A scroll near my foot uncurled on its own, parchment crackling like dry skin peeling. Words inked in vermilion crawled across it, peccata pontificum maximi, sins of the greatest popes. I scrambled back, heart jackhammering. Another unfurled, then a dozen, rolling toward me like obedient serpents. Whispers emanated, not audible at first, but vibrations in the air, threading into my ears like silk nooses. Clement, tradidit. Templarios. Clement betrayed the Templars. The voice was choral, layered, male, female, childlike. Clement V, 1305 to 1314, who bowed to King Philip IV and suppressed the Knights Templar in 1312, dissolving them with papal bulls that historians debate as political puppetry or protection of arcane secrets. Friday the 13th, arrests, tortures in dungeons, records sealed here, perhaps. The whispers grew, intimate, accusations of simony, nepotism, hidden children. One scroll brushed my ankle, cold as a corpse's finger, and the words burrowed into my mind, visions flashing, popes in opulent robes counting gold while peasants starved. I kicked it away, standing shakily. Hallucination, I muttered, voice echoing back distorted. Dust motes danced in my beam, forming shapes, faces. The smell intensified, rotting parchment now mingled with sulfur, faint but unmistakable, like hell's breath seeping through cracks. More scrolls activated, unfurling in waves, their edges sharpening like blades. I grabbed one, trying to roll it shut. Rational fix, catalog the anomaly, report later. But the material resisted, supple as flesh, and ink seeped through my gloves, stinging like acid. The whispers pinpointed me, Marco. Rossi, frater tuus vocet. Marco Rossi, your brother calls. Luca. Ice flooded my veins hotter than any flame. How could it know? The 1983 incident was buried deeper than this vault: my family's shame, the priest's disappearance, the church's hush money disguised as charity. I was the skeptic, the restorer who mended tears in history without believing the ghosts. But here, Luca's voice threaded through the chorus, boyish and pleading, "Why didn't you save me, Marco? The water burned, but you watched." No, I tore the glove off, flinging the scroll. It landed, regenerating, words reforming wetly. Panic-clawed, I snatched a loose stone, smashing another parchment. It splintered, ink spraying like blood, but the pieces writhed, knitting back together with threads of shadow. The chamber responded, walls groaned, scrolls rising en masse, hovering like a storm of locusts. Whispers became a roar, sins assaulting, Alexander VI's poisons, debated in Renaissance chronicles as myth or murder, John XII's debaucheries, the cadaver synod where a corpse pope was tried, real macabre events that make academics chuckle nervously. My skin crawled literally. Beneath my shirt, the prick from earlier burned, blood symbol from the tome spreading like veins. Insects. No, the whispers manifested, words detaching from pages, burrowing under my flesh like burrowing mites. I scratched, nails drawing blood, feeling them skitter, tiny letters spelling desk end across my ribs. Pain sharp, invasive, each sin injecting guilt. Lucas' convulsions replayed on my retinas, his small hand reaching as priests held him down. I bolted, boots slipping on rolling parchments that tripped like snares. The vault twisted, corridors forming where none were, lined with more scrolls whispering personalized torments. You let him die, skeptic, restore the lies. Olfactory assault peaked, the rot turned metallic, blood and ink blending, evoking Inquisition torture chambers where confessions were inked in victims' fluids. Desperation fueled me. I hurled the tome ahead like a grenade, pages scattering, whispers elsewhere. Temporary distraction. I ducked into a side alcove, breath ragged, pressing against cold stone. Silence fell, almost. Then Luca's voice alone, closer, "Join me, brother. The gates remember." The ground softened underfoot, scrolls carpeting it, wrapping my legs in papery tendrils, pulling with surprising strength. They coiled up calves, thighs, cold and constricting like burial shrouds. Ink seeped through fabric, words branding skin, eternal sins. I clawed, tearing, but more came, a living net dragging me toward the wall. It dissolved before my eyes, not stone, but illusion, revealing a maw-like opening, darkness pulsing within like a throat swallowing. The tendrils yanked harder, my fingers scraping for purchase as I slid inexorably closer. From the void beyond, not just whispers but screams, a cacophony of damned souls layered with Luca's laughter twisting into something inhuman, elongated jaws unseen but felt in the air's vibration. Eyes gleamed in the depths, not red pinpricks but hollow sockets of popes and brothers, widening to devour. The wall's edge crumbled under my grip, and as I dangled half over, a hand, not paper, but fleshy and child-sized, emerged from the dark, nails elongated to claws, grasping for my throat with a grip that promised to pull me into eternal reading, where sins whispered forever into flayed ears. That void stared back, hungry, and I screamed as it began to drag me in soul first. If whispers from buried sins ever clawed into your skin like insects, whose voice would break you, the past's or your own? Spill in the comments, your theories fuel this series. Share with a history buff who digs church dark sides, and hit notifications for the bleeding that comes next. We're just scratching the surface. Chapter 4. The Bleeding Ink. The void's claw hand grazed my collarbone, nails like rusted quills slicing skin, but momentum reversed. Something yanked me back, the scrolls shredding in a frenzy of paper cuts that stung like holy fire. I tumbled backward, slamming into the cavern floor amid a blizzard of fluttering parchments. The walrus led with a wet suck, like flesh knitting over a wound, leaving only echoing screams fading into whispers. My chest heaved, blood trickling from where that child hand Lucas had torn fabric and flesh alike. The prick on my finger from earlier throbbed in rhythm, the symbol spreading, veins blackening under skin like ink injected into arteries. I lay there gasping, the Liber Umbrarum pages scattered around me like shed skin. One landed on my thigh, sticking unnaturally, its words pulsing. The chamber had shifted again. Scrolls retreated, revealing a new antechamber, walls lined with amphorae of ancient ink pots, stoppered with wax seals cracked and oozing. The air hung heavier here, viscous, carrying the copper tang of fresh slaughter mixed with the bitter almond of archival preservatives. This was an scriptorium from hell, illuminations on the walls depicting monks hunched over desks, their veins tapped like wells for pigment. Historical monk scribes used iron gall ink that corroded pages over time, but here, it corroded everything. Pushing up, my legs wobbled like a penitent's knees on Ash Wednesday. The cuts on my chest burned, but deeper, the ink from the scrolls had seeped in during the struggle, burrowing not just words but substance. I felt it crawling, a subcutaneous tide, letters forming under epidermis, tiny scripts spelling accusations, Frater Proditer, brother betrayer. Scratching only worsened, nails drew blood that welled black, inky. Body horror dawned, my skin was becoming the page. Staggering forward, I retrieved the tome's loose pages, each one warm, slick. Reuniting them to the binding felt like stitching a corpse. The central pot drew me largest, ceramic etched with Chi-Rho symbols, lit askew. Inside, not ink but a viscous crimson fluid bubbled faintly, surface rippling without heat. I dipped a finger, stupid, but compulsion gripped like demonic suggestion. It entered painless at first, then ignited, liquid raced up my digit, infiltrating capillaries, a burning spread that bloated the vein blue-black. Memories flooded unbidden, not mine, the Inquisition's. Visions assaulted, a heretic in 1480s Spain, strapped to the rack, confessors pricking veins to bleed out lies, mixing blood with ink for forced signatures on recantations. Historians debate the Spanish Inquisition's toll: 50,000 tried, thousands executed, but records show torture devices like the pear of anguish, pear-shaped tools expanded in orifices until flesh tore. Here, the ink recreated it internally, my veins swelled, dist ending under skin like overfilled quills, pressure building until capillaries burst in pinprick blooms across my forearm. Blood ink seeped out, forming words on my flesh, heresy confessed. I screamed, voice echoing muffled. Dropping to knees, I clawed at the arm nails, gouging, peeling layers of dermis that came away in strips, revealing not muscle but layered text beneath, like palimpsests scraped and rewritten. The horror intensified, where skin sloughed, fresh vellum-like tissue regenerated, pale and veined with script, but wrong quivering, sensitive to air currents that felt like breaths on raw nerves. Each sent jolts, nerves firing as if flayed alive, echoing victims whose skins were used for binding forbidden books, a real medieval practice debated in bibliophilic horrors. The fluid from the pot overflowed now, spilling across the floor in rivulets that sought me like living things. Where it touched boots, leather softened, dissolving into mush that ate upward, exposing toes. Bone-chilling cold followed heat, ink freezing in veins, crystallizing into shards that grated internally, every heartbeat a grind of glass on vessel walls. My stomach churned, bile rose black, tasting of gall nuts from ancient recipes. Vomiting, it splattered more ink, words forming in the puddle, Lucas' death date, 1983, looping eternally. Stumbling to a wall of documents, piles of Inquisition trials, pages yellowed but now bleeding fresh, droplets pattering like rain. One stack toppled, papers adhering to my wounded arm with a sickening adhesion, merging. Flesh absorbed them, paper fibers embedded, becoming part of me, edges cutting inward like embedded shrapnel. I tore one free, agony exploded, a flap of my skin ripping with it, exposing raw script muscle that twitched, letters rearranging to spell please, burn me not. Body violated, turning archival my torso a living codex, ribs visible through translucent patches where ink thinned the derma to parchment fragility. Rationality screamed, counteract. I smashed a pot, hoping dilution shards embedded in palm, slicing deeper, ink blood mixing in wounds that wouldn't clot, oozing perpetually. The spread accelerated, up neck, toward face. Eyes stung as vessels engorged, vision tinting red, ink infiltrating vitreous humor, words floating in sight, blurred visions of Torquemada's auto da fe, victims' skins blistering in flames, debated as justice or genocide. Lucas' voice returned through the pain, feel what I felt, Marco. The burning inside. My legs gave, collapsing into the ink pool. It lapped hungrily, seeping pores, bloating abdomen until belly distended like a gravid horror, internal organs shifting with liquid weight. Pressure mounted, veins on forehead bulging, ready to rupture, skin splitting in seams that wept black tears. A mirror loomed on the far wall, baroque frame, silver tarnished. Reflection hid like damnation, me, but mutilated face a patchwork of flayed text, eyes leaking ink, mouth agape with tongue swollen, inscribed with prayers backward. Aging accelerated, wrinkles etched like cracks in old folios, hair graying strand by strand, falling in clumps that writhed like bookmarks. The ink wasn't just invading, it was rewriting me, cells dying and reforming in accelerated decay, flesh sloughing in sheets that piled at feet, steaming. Horror peaked internally, heart stuttered, chambers filling, each beat squirting ink through arteries, a drowning from within. Lungs constricted, breaths gurgling wet. I clawed toward escape, but the floor tilted, ink forming a slope dragging back. The mirror cracked, my reflection stepping out. No, my own hand shattering glass, shards embedding face, each piece reflecting a different torment, one eye seeing Lucas' exorcism, skin bubbling, another the rack's stretch, bones creaking. As regeneration faltered, new skin bubbling up pustulant, covered in raised script that itched eternally, I glimpsed salvation, a door beyond, but the ink surged final, flooding mouth, choking words. If bleeding words ever rewrote your body from inside, read on through the pain or wipe it all away in madness. Drop your horrors in comments, let's bind this community. Share if Inquisition chills hit hard, and notifications for the shadows that judge next. Chapter 5. Shadows of the Inquisitors. The ink surged into my throat like a living flood, bitter and metallic on my tongue, choking off my scream into a gurgling wheeze that tasted of rusted iron and forgotten confessions. My body convulsed on the scriptorium floor, veins pulsing visibly under translucent skin, each throb sending waves of heat that blistered from within, while the cold counterseep of the fluid froze my esophagus into a rigid tube. Vision blurred through ink-veiled eyes, the world tinting sanguine, sounds muffled to a distant roar like underwater chants. Then, rupture, my mouth expelled the deluge in a violent spray, black droplets splattering the mirror shards that crunched under my palms like brittle bones, slicing deeper with a sharp sting that mingled blood with ink in a warm, sticky rivulet down my chin. Gasping, air rushed back harsh, laced with the acrid stink of scorched parchment and my own bile, a sour acidity that burned nostrils already raw from the overflow. The bloating subsided, abdomen deflating with a wet slosh, but the damage lingered. Skin across my torso itched eternally, raised letters shifting like braille under fingertips that felt numb yet hypersensitive, every brush of air a whisper of pain. The chamber spun, walls echoing my retches with hollow amplification, the dissolved boots squelching in puddles that sucked at solace like mud in a grave. I crawled forward on hands and knees, shards embedding deeper with crystalline crunches, drawing fresh blood that sizzled on contact with residual ink hissing like holy water on possessed flesh. The door beyond the mirror loomed, a wooden archway warped with age, its iron hinges groaning a low metallic moan as I pushed through. Transition hit like a slap, air shifted from viscous humidity to dry, papery aridity that cracked my lips instantly, tasting of dust and desiccated incense. Temperature plummeted, a bone-chilling draft whispering through cracks, carrying the faint, echoing drip-drip of distant water. Torture, or was it blood? The new corridor unfolded, narrow, rib-vaulted like a Gothic crypt, walls paneled in dark oak etched with inquisitorial seals, the eye for Inquisition intertwined with crosses, their grooves filled with centuries of grime that smelled of wax and fear sweat. My bare feet, boots half-eaten, padded on cold flagstones veined with frost, each step sending jolts up calves, nerves firing from the ink's invasion. Shadows played tricks under my faltering flashlight, elongated, detaching from corners with a subtle rustle, like robes brushing stone. They emerged slowly, at first wisps of darkness peeling from the walls with a sound like Velcro tearing, a low rip that vibrated in my eardrums. The air thickened again, heavy with the ozone tang of impending lightning, undercut by the musty odor of mildew and old torch smoke, evoking auto-da-fe pyres where heretics burned, their fats popping in flames as chronicled in 15th century trial logs. Historians debate Torquemada's methods over 2,000 executed in Spain alone, waterboarding precursors or psychological breakdowns, but here, the shadows solidified into robed figures, hoods obscuring faces, their footsteps a synchronized thud-thud that resonated through the floor into my solace, syncing with my erratic heartbeat. Marco Rossi, one intoned, voice a multilayered Latin growl that buzzed in my chest cavity, deep bass rumbling like organ pipes in St. Peter's. Heresy erga modernus. Modern heretic. The accusation slapped orally, echoing off walls with crystalline clarity, while visually they advanced forms inky black, edges blurring like smoke, but tactile presence pressing air pressure that squeezed my lungs, making each inhale a labored rasp tasting of ash. I bolted, legs pumping despite the burn, skin splitting anew along ink lines with wet tears that sounded like pages ripping. The corridor twisted labyrinthine, torches igniting spontaneously in sconces, flames blue and cold, their heatless flicker casting heat mirages that warped vision, while the crackle pop of unnatural fire filled ears, mimicking bones snapping on the rack. Sense assaulted, frankincense masking underlying rot, the putrid sweetness of gangrenous flesh from plague-era interrogations, when accused were questioned amid Black Death horrors. A shadow lunged, its rope brush against my arm icy as liquid nitrogen, numbing flesh instantly while igniting nerve ends in paradoxical fire pain layered, hot-cold agony that made me yelp, voice echoing back distorted, higher pitched like a child's Lucas. Confiture, it demanded, fingers elongated tendrils grabbing my shoulder with a grip that crushed bone deep, pressure audible in cartilage creaks, smell of my own fear sweat blooming sharp and acrid. Flashback sensory overload, Naples Church, Luca's exorcism, smell of sizzling skin on holy water, sound of guttural Aramaic spewing from his mouth, taste of salt tears on my lips as I watched hidden. Guilt amplified here, shadows whispered doubts in stereo, left ear faiths crumble, right ear brothers blame, you doubted the right, let demons win. Touch intensified, their forms phased through walls but solidified on contact, robe fabric coarse as sackcloth, abrading my regenerating skin until it bled afresh, warm trickles cooling rapidly in the draft. I twisted free, slamming into a side alcove, walls here covered in frescoes of judgments, paints flaking with a dusty scent, colors vivid under torchlight, reds of hellfire that seemed to warm the air locally, contrasting the chill. The inquisitors pursued, voices debating in Latin echoes, tormentum aquae or ignis. Water or fire torture. Their footsteps quickened to a thunderous cadence, vibrations shaking dust from ceilings that pattered like rain on my scalp, gritty particles lodging in eyes, blurring with tears that tasted metallic from ink residue. One shadow detached fully, forming Torquemada's likeness, gaunt face pale as parchment, eyes void sucking light, breath exhaling frost that crystallized on my lashes, weighing them heavy. It raised a spectral quill, massive, dripping itcher that splattered with acidic hisses on stone, smell of vinegar and blood evoking strappado ropes fraying flesh. Sign your confession, it boomed, voice reverberating in my skull, pressuring eardrums to near burst. Doubt flooded, faith. The church's rock, or crumbling facade like these walls. Luca died because I hid, skeptical even then. Shadows closed, tendrils wrapping legs constricting, cold that numbed yet burned, muscles cramping with audible pops, while the air filled with choral accusations, scents layering to nausea, incense, sweat, fear, piss from historical cells. A statue loomed ahead, St. Peter, key in hand, but the lead shadow merged, possessing it with a crackling infusion like lightning in stone. Marble groaned alive, eyes glowing red embers that radiated heat waves distorting air, smell of baking clay. The statue lunged, fist swinging with wind whistle, smashing wall inches away, shrapnel peppering my face, sharp stings drawing blood that tasted coppery on lips. If historical judges ever gripped your soul with cold fire, freezing doubts in sensory storm, would you confess your deepest guilt or fight the shadows tooth and nail? Spill those chills in comments, your senses might save the next chapter. Share if Vatican trials terrify, and notifications on for the exorcism chambers screams ahead, we're binding tighter. Chapter 6. The Forgotten Exorcism Chamber. The statue's fist pulverized the wall beside my head, marble shards exploding like shrapnel from a heretical blast, peppering my cheek with razor-sharp kisses that drew hot blood, its salty tang mixing with the dust on my tongue as I ducked and rolled. The impact's shockwave thrummed through the stone floor, vibrating up my spine like a seismic confession, while the air filled with the acrid bite of pulverized rock and lingering ozone from the shadow's possession. St. Peter's stone eyes glowed fiercer, ember-red fissures cracking across the surface with audible snaps, like bones dislocating in a rack's embrace. I scrambled backward, boots scraping grit that ground into wounds, the cold draft now a howling gale whipping my torn shirt against ink-scarred skin, each flap a stinging reminder of the burrowing letters beneath. The Inquisitor shadows surged, their Latin chants a cacophony that buzzed in my eardrums like swarming locusts, voices overlapping in dissonant harmony, exorcizamus te, omnes immundus spiritus, we exorcise you, every unclean spirit. Irony clawed my gut, I was the possessed now, the tome's curse pulsing in my veins with feverish heat. A tendril lashed my ankle, intangible yet solid, yanking with a force that wrenched joints, pain shooting white-hot up my leg, muscles tearing with a wet rip I felt more than heard over the din. No escape backward, the corridor sealed behind, walls grinding shut with a tectonic groan that shook dust from vaults, particles sifting into my eyes like abrasive ash, blurring vision to tears that burned paths down grimy cheeks. Forward then through a side archway that materialized like a condemned man's final door, hinges unoiled and screaming as I shoulder barged it open. The chamber beyond hit like plunging into a forgotten reliquary, air stale and fetid, thick with the cloying sweetness of melted beeswax from ancient candles and the underlying rot of mildew on velvet vestments, a scent that coated my throat like sacramental wine gone vinegar sour. This was it, the forgotten exorcism room, a relic from the 17th century ritual Romanum era, when Pope Paul V standardized rites amid witch hunts that swept Europe. Historians debate the manual's roots derived from 1614 texts, updated in 1952, with over 1,200 exorcists trained today worldwide, but sealed reports whisper of failures, bodies convulsing beyond salvation, rites abandoned mid-chant. Chains dangled from the ceiling like rusted serpents, their links clinking softly in an unfelt breeze, cold iron biting the air with a metallic tang that evoked bloodletting tools. A cracked baptismal font squatted in the corner, holy water long evaporated to a scummy residue that reeked of algae and sanctified salts, its marble edges chipped from desperate claws. The door slammed shut behind me, lock clicking with finality, the sound echoing like a judge's gavel. Shadows leaked through cracks, reforming as smoky entities, demons coalescing from incense haze, forms twisting with sulphurous wisps that stung nostrils and watered eyes. They hovered, eyeless yet watchful, their presence a pressure on my eardrums like descending into oceanic depths, while the temperature swung wildly, blasts of infernal heat alternating with arctic chills that frosted my breath into visible plumes tasting of frankincense ghosts. I backed to the font, dipping fingers into the scum instinct, protocol from childhood memories. The residue burned skin, fizzing like acid on the ink symbols, eliciting a hiss from my flesh that synced with the entity's growls. Luca's death replayed unbidden, Naples 1983, the priest's voice booming in Nomine Patris, holy water sizzling on my brother's skin, the acrid smoke filling the church nave, Luca's screams piercing like nails on slate while I cowered, tasting fear sweat on lips bitten bloody. Here, the demons reenacted it, one manifesting as that priest, face melting into waxen drips that plopped audibly on the floor, scent of burning flesh overwhelming. Perform the rite, custos, it rasped, voice gravelly and layered with Luca's child tones beneath. Save him again, or fail eternally. Chains animated, rattling violently, wrapping my wrists with frigid grips that bruised bone deep, hoisting me spread-eagled like a heretic on display. Pain radiated, joints straining with pops, while smoky tendrils probed my mouth, ethereal yet invasive, tasting of ash and brimstone, forcing Latin words up my throat, backward prayers, Surtup enim and I, twisting tongue in knots. I choked them out impromptu, voice hoarse, exorcizo te, immundissime spiritus. But failure loomed, the entities laughed, a sound like tearing vellum amplified in the chamber's acoustics, vibrating walls that wept condensation cold as tears. The priest demon lunged, hands phasing into my chest, fingers intangible yet wrenching heartstrings, literally cardiac muscles cramping in vice-like spasms, each beat a thunder in ears, vision tunneling to black spots while sense amplified, my own panic musk mingling with demonic rot, a psychological break as church cover UPS flooded mind sealed files I'd restored, cases like Annalise Michel's 1976 horrors, 67 rites failing amid seizures, debated as epilepsy or possession, the Vatican attributing death to malnutrition but whispers saying otherwise. Why hush us, Marco, the demon Luca whispered, form shifting to my brother's boyish silhouette, eyes black voids leaking ichor that splattered hot on my face, stinging like acid rain. Guilt peaked, I questioned it all, the rites, the faith, cover UPS like post-Vatican II suppress ions of old rituals. The chains tightened, metal cutting skin, warm blood trickling with copper smell, dripping to floor where it sizzled on sigils etched there, awakening more smoke. In desperation, I twisted the right, grabbing a chain link, swinging into the font, shattering it. Scummy water splashed, repelling temporarily with holy hisses, steam rising acrid and blinding. Entities recoiled, shrieking in frequencies that shattered eardrums. Comfort, a high-pitched whine-piercing skull. I dropped, rolling free, but the floor rumbled ominously, cracks spider webbing from the center, glowing with subterranean heat that baked solace through boots, smell of sulfur belching up like hell's breath. The demons reformed stronger, priest Luca merging into a colossal shade, tendrils lassoing ankles. Join him below, it boomed, yanking toward the widening pit. Edges crumbled with rockfall crashes, dust choking lungs, while from depths rose screams, not echoes, but a chorus of failed exorcism victims, voices layering in agonized harmony, pulling psychically. The floor gave fully beneath me, chains dragging me down into a bone pit yawning like jaws, skeletal hands erupting from below, Not mere bones but animated claws scraping flesh with calcareous scratches, their grips iron hard and fracturing ribs audibly, cold as crypt air flooding lungs. Luca's face peered over the edge, grinning monstrously elongated, mouth unhinging to reveal rows of teeth like rosary beads, whispering desk and ultimum as the pit swallowed me whole, bones piling in avalanche that crushed breath from body, darkness closing with the wet snap of devouring maws. Ever wondered if a failed ritual from your past could drag you literal bones first into the abyss? What forgotten failure would haunt your drop? Jot it down in the comments, those shares spark the series fire. Turn on notifications if church rites unravel you. We're chaining deeper next. Chapter 7. Mirrors of Lost Souls. The bone pit's claws raked my sides as I plummeted, skeletal fingers gouging flesh with chalky scrapes that drew blood hot and sticky, their grips fracturing ribs in audible cracks that echoed like rosary beads snapping underfoot. Air rushed past in a deafening whoosh, carrying the charnel stench of decayed marrow and sanctified earth, centuries of buried clerics mingling with exorcism failures, a cloying rot that coated my tongue like communion wafers turned to ash. Luca's elongated grin faded above, his whisper trailing, "See you soon, brother," twisting into a guttural laugh that vibrated through the falling dark. Impact came not with a crunch but a shattering. My body smashed through a false bottom of bones into a hall below, landing amid glass explosions that tinkled like shattered chalices, shards embedding skin with pinprick fires, each fragment reflecting fractured light in a kaleidoscope of pain. I rolled onto my back, gasping amid the wreckage, the air here thinner and metallic, tasting of polished silver and ozone from arcane energies. Dust settled on my lashes, gritty and irritating, while the temperature hovered unnaturally neutral, neither hot nor cold, but a clammy equilibrium that made sweat evaporate instantly, leaving skin taut and prickling. The chamber unveiled itself under my dimming flashlight, a vast hall of mirrors, Baroque frames gilded but tarnished, lining walls in infinite regression, each pane fogged with condensation that dripped slowly, plinking echoes like water clocks in monastic cells. This was the Speculum Animarum Perditarum Mirror of Lost Souls, whispered in alchemical texts suppressed during the 18th century Enlightenment purges, when Vatican indices banned works on necromancy, debated by scholars as metaphor or literal portals to purgatorial reflections. Groaning, I pushed up on elbows slick with blood, glass crunching beneath palms with crystalline grinds that sent vibrations up arms, nerves jangling like overtuned harp strings. The mirrors captured me, multiply, infinite Marcos, each scarred differently by ink and claw, eyes hollowed by guilt. But movement stirred not mine. In the reflections, souls trapped in glass began to stir, faint at first, wisps of figures banging silently against the inner surfaces, fists muffled thuds that resonated through the frames into the air, a subtle bass hum felt in chest cavities. One mirror closest drew focus, a priest from the 1950s, cassock tattered, mouthing rites futilely, real cases like Father Emertha's thousands of exorcisms, documented but debated for dramatic effect versus genuine possession. His bangs grew insistent, glass vibrating with increasing force, the sound evolving from thumps to desperate scratches, nails on silver leaving ethereal streaks that smelled faintly of ectoplasmic ozone, sharp and electric on the tongue when I inhaled deeply. I staggered to my feet, boots crunching, more shards, pain ignored in adrenaline surge, and approached. The priest's eyes locked on mine, pleading, while behind him in the mirror depth, Luca appeared as a child, trapped beside, small hands pressing glass from inside, fogging it with breath that wasn't there. Marco, his voice emanated not from ears but directly into mind, a telepathic whisper cool as crypt wind brushing synapses. Sensory overload, the glass warmed under my touch, pulsing like skin, and visions bled through alternate deaths replaying in panoramic horror. First shard, me as a boy in Naples, hiding while Luca convulsed, but twisted I joined the priests, splashing water that boiled his flesh audibly, sizzle pop filling the hall amplified, smell of searing meat overwhelming, guilt tasting bitter as gall on my palate. Bangs escalated hall-wide now, souls in unison pounding, the cacophony a symphony of muffled screams vibrating frames that shook the floor, dust sifting anew into eyes stinging with reflective tears. Another mirror, adult me restoring a heretical text, ink burrowing not into skin but eyes, blindness descending with wet pops as vitreous humor clouded, world darkening to tactile hell fingers groping air thick as velvet, sense amplifying to nausea, my own decay premature, rot from within. Luca in glass beside trapped souls begged, shatter me free, brother. And it? His form aged rapidly in reflection, boy to teen to corpse, skin sloughing in sheets that slapped glass wetly, sound squelching through the barrier. Horror compounded, mirrors crack spontaneously, fissures spider webbing with hairline snaps, shards flying outward in slow motion arcs that whistled past ears, embedding flesh with icy stabs, glass entering arms, legs, torso, burrowing deeper osmotically, merging with ink veins in symbiotic agony. Where shards pierced, internal sins manifested, glass fragments reflected inner organs, heart visible beating erratically, lungs inflating with visible guilt smoke, each breath a rasp tasting of metallic regret. Regeneration from earlier curse ward flesh knitting around intrusions, ejecting some shards in bloody spurts that pattered like rain, but others lodged, creating crystalline tumors that throbbed with captured light, warming internally to fever pitches. I smashed a mirror to free Luca, fist connecting with explosive crack, glass imploding inward then rebounding, shards embedding my knuckles to bone with grinding crunches, pain white hot radiating up arms, blood spraying in arcs that splattered adjacent panes, awakening more souls. Freed wisps escaped as ectoplasmic tendrils, brushing skin with feather-light chills that raised goose flesh, their moans audible now wails in ancient tongues layering over each other, a choral dirge vibrating teeth. One tendril entered a wound, possessing briefly, vision of joining Luca's shattering all, eternal entrapment in reflective limbo, sense of shattered illusions acrid as broken promises. Bloodied and shard-riddled, I reeled body a mosaic of glass and text, each movement crunching internals, sounds amplified grotesquely, heartbeats echoing in crystal cavities. The hall's end portal sucked suddenly, a vortex wind howling through, pulling with vacuum force that tugged hair, clothes, skin suction peeling layers painfully, while mirrors converged, reflections multiplying to infinity, souls banging in frenzy to escape or drag me in. The pull intensified, feet sliding on glass slick floor, shards dislodging from body in bloody ejections, clattering like hail. Luca's hand emerged from a central mirror, not childlike but elongated adult, veins glass sign, grasping my wrist with vice grip cold as liquid nitrogen yet burning like molten silver, flesh fusing on contact, merging our skins in crystalline bond, pain synaptic overload screaming through nerves. Come inside, he pulled, portal widening to suck me through shard by shard, reflections swallowing whole as bangs crescendoed to glass apocalypse, eternal entrapment yawning. If a trapped loved one's grasp fused you into reflective eternity, pulling shard from soul shatter the bond or join the infinite echoes. Comment that pull, it mirrors our next descent. Hit like if mirrors just got monstrous. Subscribe for the bone-chilling library ahead. Chapter 8. The Bone Library. The portal's suction yanked me through the fusing grasp, Luca's crystalline grip shattering at the threshold with a deafening crack that echoed like a cathedral bell tolling damnation, shards of our merged flesh exploding outward in a spray of glassy blood that pattered against my skin like frozen rain, each droplet stinging with residual cold fire before evaporating into ethereal mist. I tumbled headfirst into void, wind howling in ears, a banshee wail scented with ozone and sanctified dust, body flipping end over end until slamming into a surface unyielding yet yielding piles of something brittle that crunched beneath me with hollow pops, like stepping on desiccated relics in a ossuary forgotten by God. Air expelled from lungs in a whoosh, tasting of marrow dust and ancient leather, thick enough to chew as it coated tongue and throat in powdery residue. Darkness receded slowly under my flickering light, revealing the bone library, shelves towering to impossible heights, not wood but femurs and ribs interlocked like Gothic arches, yellowed bones polished by time or torment, their surfaces etched with minuscule scripts that glowed faintly phosphorescent, illuminating the space in sickly green hues. The air hung heavy, humid with the earthy tang of calcified decay mingled with the tannic bite of human skin bindings, real medieval practices where flayed criminals hides bound judgment texts, debated in forensic history as punishment or preservation. I pushed up amid the debris, books strewn, covers of stretched dermis supple yet cracked, veined with blue tattoos of forgotten runes, pages whispering as they settled like autumn leaves in a crypt wind. My wounds from the mirrors knit unevenly, glass shards embedded deeper during the fall, grinding against bone with each movement, an internal symphony of crunches that vibrated through skeleton, pain radiating in waves hot and sharp, sense of my own blood coppery and fresh contrasting the library's desiccated staleness. The Liber Umbrarum landed nearby, pages splayed open on a pedestal of stacked skulls, their eye sockets staring accusatorily, jaws agape in silent screams. The arm symbol from earlier, the blood prick's legacy, glowed hotter, sinking with the bone etchings, unlocking a pulse that thrummed through the room like a heartbeat from the walls. Dust motes danced in my beam, carrying faint auditory hallucinations, scribbling quills on parchment, distant chants in dead languages, the subtle crackle of joints animating. A book near my foot shifted on its own, binding creaking like old leather straps on a rack. Skin cover, yes, palpable under touch, warm unnaturally, pores still visible as if recently harvested. I recoiled, but curiosity, the archivist's curse, drew me. Flipping it carefully, gloves long lost, fingers brushed the page, vellum thin as eyelid, inked with confessions of Vatican librarians who'd descended before, their fates detailed in fading brown iron gall from blood mixtures, corrosive over centuries. One entry, a 19th century restorer uncovering Cathar heresies, bones harvested post-mortem for eternal shelves, academic debates on anthropodermic bibliopegy confirming real instances, like Harvard's confirmed human skin book. The library responded to the tome, bones in shelves rattled, a low clatter building to orchestral percussion, vibrations felt in teeth and chest. Skeletons assembled from nooks, not full bodies but piecemeal librarians, spines of vertebrae clicking into place with dry snaps, rib cages expanding with whooshing airs like bellows in a forge, skulls slotting onto necks with hollow thunks. Sense amplified, formaldehyde ghosts from preservation attempts, undercut by fresh osteal dust that irritated nostrils to sneezes tasting of grave soil. They rose jerky, animated by shadow threads from the mirror's escape, eye sockets igniting with witch light blue, jaws clacking demands in Latin echoes, rete animus debitas return the overdue souls. One approached, phalanges extended like bookmarks, touching my glowing arm, contact electric, pain lancing as the symbol unlocked further, revealing family curse, Rossi's as eternal guardians, Luca's death the seal break, tied to a 14th century ancestor who bound demons into texts during the Avignon papacy schisms, when popes warred and secrets festered. The skeletons encircled, bony fingers prodding with cold probes that bruised flesh, sounds of their movements a cacophony of castanets, sense of animated decay blooming putrid maggot-less rot from within hollows. I swung the tome like a weapon, pages fanning to repel with gusts of script wind, but they pressed, demanding payment in soul or bone. One librarian skeleton pried at my embedded shards, extracting with pliers fingers that ground glass free in bloody pulls, each tug a symphony of agony, wet tears of tissue, hot blood spurting with metallic smell, nerves screaming in exposed air. Revelation hit amid the fray, the glowing symbol unlocked a spine book on the pedestal, pages of bone slats flipping to show Luca's face etched in ivory, eyes pleading from the grain. The skeletons halted, bowing as if to royalty, then reformed a cage around me, ribs interlocking with audible clicks into bars, femurs cross-bracing, trapping me in a bony prison that constricted with each breath, pressure building on lungs with creaking compressions, air growing scant and tasting of my panic breath recycled. Their leader, a tall assemblage with a mitre of finger bones, leaned in, jaw unhinging with a crack, whispering through teeth clacks, "Pay the due, or join the stacks." The cage tightened rhythmically, ribs pressing skin to breaking point, bones grinding against mine in symbiotic threat, my skeleton responding, itching to merge, Luca's voice from the book, "Let them take, brother, eternal library together." As bars closed to suffocating closeness, skulls leaning in with glowing sockets that sucked light and soul, the pedestal cracked open beneath, revealing deeper voids where bound souls screamed in etched agony. If a family curse assembled your bones into eternal shelves, bargain with the skeletons for freedom or break the cage and risk shattering your own frame. Share that skeletal dread below, comments build the archives. Subscribe if human skin chills bind you tight, the crypt echoes call next. Chapter 9. Echoes from the Crypt. The pedestal's crack widened beneath the bone cage with a splintering groan that reverberated through my trapped ribs, skeletal bars digging deeper into flesh with vice-like pressure, each breath a labored wheeze as lungs compressed against unyielding calcium. Skulls pressed closer, their glowing sockets inches from my face, exhaling dusty breaths that tasted of grave soil and forgotten incense, while the library's air thinned to suffocating rarity, panic rising like bile, heart pounding a frantic tattoo against the cage's embrace. Luca's etched voice from the bone book slats pleaded one last time, "Don't leave me stacked, Marco," but the void below sucked with vacuum force, pulling me downward in a cascade of dislodged bones that clattered like hail on marble, my body sliding inexorably into the abyss amid the skeleton's clacking protests, their fingers scraping futilely at my skin with nail-like scratches that drew hot blood trails cooling instantly in the drop. The fall was shorter this time, a brutal tumble into a papal crypt extension, real necropolis layers beneath St. Peter's, where 1940s excavations unearthed Emperor Constantine's era graves amid Christian-pagan blends, historians debating edits debating if popes like Pius XII hid wartime secrets here, or deeper occult ties. Impact jarred on cold sarcophagus lids, stone unyielding and vibrating with my crash, pain exploding in spine and shards embedded limbs like fireworks of agony, sense assaulting immediately, musty embalming fluids long evaporated to acrid vinegar, mingled with wax from eternal flames and the faint, metallic tang of papal rings corroded in tombs. I rolled off the lid, gasping, the bone cage shattered in the fall but fragments clinging rib pieces embedded in my side, grinding with each inhale, a constant tension spike as if my own skeleton warred internally. The crypt stretched labyrinthine, vaults arched with frescoes of apostolic successions faded to ghosts, air heavy and oppressive, pressing on eardrums like descending into a sealed confessional where sins amplified. My flashlight beam cut swaths, revealing effigies of popes in marble repose in sea, eyes hollowed shadows that seemed to follow, while the temperature hovered clammy, sweat beating cold on skin only to chill in drafts whispering through cracks. Echoes began subtly, a faint murmur, my own footsteps rebounding delayed, but layered whispers of Latin confessions looping back distorted. Mea culpa, for the war, the gold. Pius XII's era secrets, debated in archives as neutral Vatican aiding escapes or hoarding Nazi loot, voices not mine but resonant in the stone acoustics, building tension as I crept forward, each step echoing louder, guilt manifesting orally. My guilt first, Luca's death replay. Why hide, Marco? The water burned. Child voice circling, volume swelling from whisper to shout, bouncing off walls in surround sound assault that set teeth on edge, heart rate spiking to match the crescendo. Tension ratcheted, the echoes amplified not just sound but emotion, guilt looping infinitely, each repetition sharper, accusatory, air growing thicker with auditory pressure, eardrums throbbing as if in a pressure chamber. I clamped hands over ears, but internals persisted, vibrating skull bones, sense shifting to my fear, sweat blooming sharp and acrid, mingling with crypt mold that coated throat like fungal spores. Fleshy reconstructions rose from sarcophagi, ghosts of heretics, not ethereal but corporeal horrors, swelling from stone with wet pops of regenerating tissue, skin bubbling up pale and veined, eyes reforming with squelching inserts that glistened moist. One grabbed my ankle, touch clammy and fever hot, grip tightening with muscle spasms audible in tendon snaps, pulling me toward an open tomb where echoes peaked to deafening choir, multilayered screams of burned cathars, 13th century Albigensian crusade victims whose confessions were extracted amid pyres, debated as genocide or purification. The heretic ghost's face reconstructed grotesquely, flesh knitting unevenly, seams splitting to ooze ichor that smelled of pus and frankincense, its breath ragged gasps syncing with my panicked inhales. I kicked free, boot connecting with mushy thud, but more rose, dozens, fleshy forms shambling with joint cracks and slurping footfalls, their choral screams layering over guilt echoes. You let him die, skeptic, cover up. Tension coiled, physical, chest tightening as air scant, breaths shallow, rasps tasting of rot, while symbols on arm burned hotter, drawing them like beacons. Clue hunt frantic, a saint's relic on an altar, St. Peter's key replica, glowed faintly, grabbing it repelled one with holy sizzle, steam rising, acrid, blinding eyes momentarily. But crypt sealed suddenly, walls grinding shut with earth-shake rumbles that loosened, ceiling dust cascading like suffocating snow, ceiling exits while echoes trapped inside amplified to madness levels, voices overlapping in cacophony, my screams joining, unable to drown them, air thinning to hypoxic haze, vision tunneling as oxygen depleted, heretics closing in with grasping hands that tore at clothes and flesh, nails raking bloody furrows hot and stinging, the relic's glow fading under assault. Darkness encroaching with final looped whisper, buried alive in sins. If echoing guilt ever sealed you in a thinning crypt with rising dead, silencing the chorus or embracing the confessions to survive. Let that tension echo in your comment. Share this video if papal secrets suffocate your watch time. Like for the demons deal. Next, we're confessing deeper. Chapter 10. The Demon's Confession. The crypt's ceiling rumble crescendoed to a deafening roar as walls ground shut, dust avalanching in choking clouds that clawed into lungs with gritty abrasion, each inhale a rasp of particulate fire tasting of entombed popes and heretical ash. Air thinned to desperate sips, hypoxia blurring edges of vision while heretics' fleshy grasps tore at limbs, nails raking skin in burning trails, their reconstructed moans a guttural symphony syncing with my pounding pulse. The relic key slipped from sweat-slick fingers, clattering into darkness with a hollow ting that echoed infinitely, guilt loops mocking, lost again, Marco, like Luca. Panic peaked, chest heaving futilely against vacuum pull, black spots dancing as oxygen-starved brain hallucinated Luca's child face in the horde, mouth unhinging to confess my failures. Then eruption. The altar exploded outward in a blast of sulfurous heat that scorched skin and singed hair with acrid burn, sense shifting from rot to brimstone inferno, a throne room manifesting in the breach, vast cavern lit by flaming braziers of papal tiaras melting gold, walls draped in tapestries of woven sins, threads pulsing like veins. Air flooded back, but tainted, thick with incense and brimstone, inhalable agony coating throat like molten lead. I gasped on the floor, heretics recoiling into shadows with shriveling hisses, flesh deflating to husks that crumbled dustily underfoot. Rising shakily, relic gone but symbol arm blazing white-hot pain, I faced the throne, carved from inverted crosses and bound codices, occupied by the demon as a fallen angel, wings of shadowed parchment unfurling with papery rustles, eyes twin voids swirling confessions. Its presence pressed orally, low thrum vibrating bones, visually overwhelming with auric glow that warped light, tactile aura of static raising hairs, sense layering temptation, myrrh sweetness masking underlying char of burned souls. Welcome, guardian, it intoned, voice silken multilingual Latin, Italian, Aramaic overlays that buzzed synapses, evoking Vatican pacts like the 1940 secret accords rumored with Allied occultists during World War II, historians debating if Pius XII bargained spiritually for neutrality or hid esoteric deals with entities. The Rossi line ends, or bargains. Tension coiled, my legs rooted, air humming electric, heart stuttering as it confessed Vatican alliances, popes summoning for power, like Urban VIII's astrological consultations suppressed in archives, pacts for infallibility illusions. Offer slithered, sacrifice Luca's memory, erase him from mind, escape with secrets intact. Temptation visceral, warm rush of forgetfulness teasing brain, sense of home Naples sea salt wafting illusory, but refusal boiled guilt hotter, arm symbol searing flesh with branding smell. Fight erupted, I hurled a flaming tiara brazier, metal clanging thrown with spark showers that ignited tapestries, flames roaring heat waves blistering skin, demon laughing as scrolls unfurled weapons, pages slicing air with whistling cuts that nicked cheeks, blood tasting copper over brimstone. Battle dervish, dodging wing swipes that buffeted hurricane winds, snatching a bound codex to counter pages bursting infernal script repelling with holy backlash sizzles. Demon lunged, claws raking torso in burning furrows, pain exploding white-hot while voices confessed more, hidden crusader treasures funding demon rites, debated in Templar dissolution files. I stabbed with relic shard remnant, embedding throne demon howling frequencies shattering ears, blood trickling warm. Climax personal, it revealed Tome's origin, my ancestors' binding, Luca's death the key turn. Refusal fueled, never trade him. Flaming scrolls lashed back, igniting my clothes in acrid smoke that choked vision, heat baking sweat to salt crusts, tension peaking as demon weakened but countered with illusion, Luca pleading, voice heartbreaking amid chaos. The throne cracked under assault, demon dissipating in whirlwinds of ash that pelleted skin like hail, but final whisper, the origin binds tighter. Revealing a deeper scroll floating Tome's genesis in papal blood, pulling me toward heretic flames rising anew. If a demon offered erasing your deepest guilt for freedom, accept the confession or burn fighting the truth. Ponder that deal in comments, your bargains fuel the fire. Notifications on if pacts tempt, the flames consume next. Chapter 11. Flames of the Heretics. The demon's dissipation left a vortex of scorching ash whipping around me, each particle a needle prick on exposed skin, drawing pinpricks of blood that sizzled on contact with the lingering heat, the air now a furnace blast tasting of charred parchment and brimstone regret. My clothes smoldered at the edges, fabric curling black with acrid smoke that burned nostrils and watered eyes, while the throne's cracks spider-webbed wider, belching embers that floated lazily before igniting the woven sin tapestries into roaring walls of flame. The chamber transformed fully into the burning archives, an inferno illusion of Inquisition auto da fe pyres, where 1480s Spain saw thousands auto da fe acts of faith, public burnings debated by historians as religious zeal or political terror, stakes rising here as spectral scaffolds materializing from smoke, chains dangling red-hot with metallic clinks that echoed my fracturing resolve. I staggered back, the scroll of the tome's origin fluttering into my grasp, papyrus brittle and warm, words in my ancestor's hand revealing the binding ritual fueled by Rossi blood, Luca's death the unwitting catalyst that unlocked these gates. Emotional gut punch, his small face flashed in the flames, innocent eyes accusing from the heat shimmers, whispering, "You started this, Marco, your doubt fed the fire." Horror deepened, not just physical burn, but soul-searing amnesia of forgetting him tempted still, guilt twisting like a hot poker in the gut, tears evaporating on cheeks before falling, leaving salty crusts that cracked with each grimace. Flames didn't consume the room but tormented with illusions, heretics materialized from the blaze, flesh-charred specters with skin blistering in real-time bubbles that popped audibly, releasing pus-scented steam mingling with merghosts. They grabbed hands molten yet solid, searing palms on contact with hiss of flesh welding, pain lancing up arms like branding irons from Torquemada's arsenal, each grasp evoking Luca's exorcism burns, the holy water sizzle on his skin replaying in my nerves, phantom agony overlapping real, a emotional overlay that broke sobs from my throat, raw and childlike. Feel the stake, guardian, a heretic rasped, voice crackling like logs, dragging me toward a rising pyre, wooden stakes forming from archival shelves, books fueling the base with page curls igniting in whooshes of ink smoke that choked lungs black. Terror amplified, heart hammered erratic, vision tunneling through smoke to Luca illusions in the flames, him on the stake, small body writhing, screams piercing the roar, brother, it hurts, why watch again? Am on overload, guilt's weight crushed heavier than heat, doubt in faith crumbling like the demon's throne, church packs exposed in flaming scrolls floating past, Urban 8's 1633 Galileo condemnation masking astrological summonings, debated as science versus superstition but here literal demonic consultations. Battle ignited, I swung the origin scroll like a torch, pages flaring to repel with bursts of counter-flame, holy backfire from the binding words, singeing attackers with divine sizzle that peeled their illusory skin in strips, slapping wetly to the ground, sense shifting to cooking meat horror that nauseated deeper, bile rising bitter. A heretic lunged, chain whip lashing my thigh, metal links white hot embedding momentarily, tearing free with flesh chunks in a wet rip that exposed muscle twitching visibly, pain white hot exploding stars, blood boiling on the wound before clotting black. Emotional core, Luca's illusion multiplied, dozens in the flames, each a what if death, one convulsing from the failed rite, another burning as me the failed savior, voices layering in choral accusation, you hid, you doubted, join us in ashes. Horror am on, tears streamed, not from heat but soul rent, faith shattered, prayers muttered backward under influence, Ave Maria twisting to curses on lips, self-loathing peaking as I stomped a heretic, boot crushing brittle bones with crunches that echoed my breaking spirit. Holy water font remnant from earlier materialized in mind's desperation, I hurled imagined splashes, but real, a vial from my kit, forgotten, shattered on the pyre, water evaporating to steam blasts repelling waves, heretics shrieking in frequencies that shattered eardrums, comfort, blood trickling warm from ears while temporary relief allowed advance on the central blaze. Demon reformed partially in the heart fire, wings of flame unfurling with whooshing infernos, claws raking air, whistles before slashing my chest, gashes deep, exposing ribs that steamed in heat, pain so visceral it flashed white, collapsing me to knees amid emotional flood, visions of ancestors packed Rossi blood signing away sons, Luca's death the price, my life the interest. Repel climax, grasping a flaming papal bull from the air, Clement VI 1340's indulgence papers granting plague remissions, debated as spiritual commerce, I thrust it into demon's maw illusion, paper igniting coreward, explosion of confessional flames erupting outward in shockwave that buffeted like gale, singeing hair and hope. Heretics wavered, skin sloughing in melting drips, plopping sizzling, but one final grab, a Luca heretic fusion, face melting to reveal my own aged guilt-ridden features beneath, grasping throat with burning hands that choked air and words, whisper, burn with us, end the line. As flames formed Luca's full face in the pyre's heart, mouth opening to swallow whole, emotional horror crested scream torn from soul, no more watching. Diving into the blaze with relic shard dagger, stabbing the illusion core amid searing embrace that blistered every inch, flesh charring audibly, sense of my own roasting mingling with damnation's chorus. If flames of your past failures formed a loved one's face to consume you, douse the fire with truth or embrace the burn to end it all. Whisper that emotional inferno in comments. Let's fan the series flames. Share this video if guilt's heat lingers. The portal's heart beats next. Chapter 12. The portal's heart. The flames engulfed me as I dove into the illusion core, skin charring with immediate blistering pops that echoed like gunfire in the inferno, each bubble bursting to release acrid steam smelling of seared flesh and papal incense turned toxic. Pain consumed white-hot lances piercing every nerve, my scream muffled in the roar as the Luca face loomed, mouth a vortex of fire swallowing shard dagger and armhole, bone exposed in the stab's wake grinding against ethereal teeth that gnawed with wet crunches. But the relic's thrust pierced true, the core exploded outward in a concussive wave of confessional embers, heretics disintegrating to ash whirlwinds that pelleted my raw skin like abrasive sand, sense shifting from roast to cooling cinders, emotional release crashing like a dam guilt's fire doused momentarily, Luca's accusing eyes fading in the blast, leaving hollow victory and tears hissing on blistered cheeks. I collapsed through the pyre's remnants, rolling on stone now cooled to clammy dampness, breath's ragged rasps tasting of smoke and blood from bitten tongue. The chamber reformed around me, the portal's heart, a pulsating organ chamber, walls veined with book spines throbbing like arteries, pages fluttering as valves in a massive heart construct, air humming with rhythmic throbs that sync to my erratic pulse, pressure building in eardrums like underwater depths. Sense overpowered, visceral iron of blood ink pumping through spine veins, mingled with ozone from arcane energies and the faint, comforting must of archival glue turned grotesque. Historical docs floated in the ether, papal prophecies from the 1950s Malachi list, debated as forged omens of apocalyptic popes, revealing church's hidden end times script, a final Rossi to seal or unleash. The demon returned stronger, coalescing from the heart's beat form titanic, wings of flaming scrolls unfurling with whooshing infernos that heated air to sauna scorch, eyes voids pulsing confessions. The heart feeds on bloodlines, it boomed, voice vibrating the veined walls, tendrils of spine books lashing out to ensnare legs with papery grips that sliced skin like razor pages, drawing blood that sizzled on contact, feeding the pulse louder. Emotional on surged, Luca's voice from the veins, stab here, brother, and us both, guilt twisting anew my dive a parallel to hiding in 83, watching him burn in right fever. Battle royal erupted, I slashed with charred shard, severing tendrils in wet severings that sprayed ink blood warm and sticky, splattering face with metallic taste, while demon countered with dark blizzards floating prophecies whipping like shuriken, embedding thighs with paper cuts that burned deeper, words burrowing psychically to replay failures, ancestors' pact signing away sons, my restoration career a unwitting continuation. Tension physical, heart throbs quickened, veins bulging to burst point, air compressing lungs while heat baked sweat to salt crusts, vision blurring through smoke tears. Stab attempt, lunging at the core a beating nucleus of bound tomes, guarded by spine whips that coiled waist, constricting with bone cracks on ribs, pain exploding as breaths shortened to gasps, emotional horror layering Luca illusions in the pulse, reason with it, Marco, or we die together again. Faith's remnants fueled, reciting backward prayers twisted to empowerment, shard glowing with holy residue piercing a vein explosion of inky itcher fountain, scalding face with viscous burns that smelled of corrupted wine, demon howling frequencies shattering nearby spines to shrapnel peppering arms. Merged twist, the heart absorbed the tome fully, veins merging reality's walls dissolving to blend crypt flames with library bones, heretics and skeletons fusing in hybrid horrors shambling with clatter squelches, sense multilayered rot flame. Demon swelled, claws raking coreward path, but I pressed stabbing nucleus amid constrictions that crushed air from lungs, vision blackening, guilt peaking, for Luca. Final thrust embedded deep, heart convulsing in seismic throbs shaking ground, ink blood flooding chamber to ankle depth warm and clinging, pulling under as realities warped. The heart's beat faltered, but backlash sucked me center veins wrapping body in throbbing embrace, merging flesh to page, skin turning vellum transparent over pulsing script, emotional terror, becoming the archive, Luca's voice internal now, we're one. As collapse loomed, brother return gate opening in the core's rupture. If your bloodlines end pulsed in a merging heart, stab deep to seal or reason with the demon's shared guilt. Pulse your thoughts in comments, share if apocalyptic secrets throb. Like for the brother's return, the confrontation haunts next. Chapter 13. My brother's return. The heart's rupture belched me out in a gush of inky viscera, veins snapping like umbilical cords with wet lashes that whipped my face, splattering cold sludge tasting of corrupted blood and archival mold across lips cracked from the heat. I slid across the merging floor, now a grotesque fusion of pulsing flesh and crumbling stone, realities overlapping in nauseating waves where bone library shelves protruded from throbbing arteries, their etched scripts bleeding fresh as the chamber convulsed in aftershocks. Air heaved with labored breaths of the dying portal, sense overwhelming, metallic tang of spilled ichor mingling with char from lingering flames and the putrid sweetness of decaying prophecies, each inhale a choke on history's rot. My body, half-merged vellum skin peeling in translucent strips that fluttered painfully, shards and burns competing in symphony of agony, ribs grinding from constrictions, vision swimming through ink-veiled eyes that reflected infinite Lucas in the veined walls. The rupture widened to a gate, edges fraying like torn pages, sucking debris into void with vacuum whispers that tugged at soul more than body. Emotional void hit harder, guilt's core exposed, the stab not ending but birthing Luca's voice no longer illusion but resonant from the breach. You opened me, Marco, now close us. On Claude, flashbacks cascaded in the merge layers, Naples church blending with Vatican depths, his small body convulsing under priest's hands while I hid, tasting fear salt tears then as now, horror of repetition, failing savior again, bloodline curse manifesting fully. He emerged not child, but possessed abomination, Luca's form bloated to adult height in seconds, skin stretching audibly with elastic snaps over demonic frame, eyes black voids leaking ichor that hissed on floor, mouth unhinging to reveal layered teeth like rosary chains grinding. Brother, it rasped in our shared childhood, timber twisted base deep, blame dripping, you let the water burn, now feel my return. Chase ignited instantly, him lunging with elongated arms that phased through merging walls, grasping air whistles turning solid on contact, fingers clawing my shoulder in burning grips that tore vellum flesh with wet rips, exposing muscle scripted with family sins. I bolted through fusing layers, crypt flames licking ankles with heat blisters popping, library bones tripping steps with clatters that echoed blame hide again. Emotional knife twist deeper than claws. Panic physical, heart sinking to portals falter, beats erratic causing stumbles, breaths ragged in thinning air tasting Luca's exorcism smoke reborn. He pursued relentless, form shifting mid-stride boy to teen to corpse fusion, voices layering flashbacks, 1983 right chance overlapping Inquisition screams, my cowardice replayed in holographic merges where young me watched from pews now manifesting as bone barriers I crashed through, shards embedding anew with crunchy embeds. Confrontation peak, cornered in a merged alcove altar of thrones and sarcophagi he pinned me, breath hot sulfur on face evoking right's holy water steam but infernal, claws digging chest over heart, blame me? You doubted, join the watchers. Emotional horror crested sobs racking amid pain, faith's remnants crumbling, I was scared, forgive. But he blamed fully, mouth descending to bite soul deep, teeth piercing ether with psychic rent, guilt flooding visions of alternate saves, me intervening, dying together, or succeeding and living haunted. Chase twisted layers, diving through flame bone portals, burns and breaks compounding legs snapping on femur protrusion with audible crack, pain white hot forcing limp run, blood trail feeding merges that grew Luca clones shambling in pursuit, choral blames deafening. Flashbacks sensory overload, his convulsions foam taste on my memory lips, priest's chants vibrating bones now real in the walls. Final gate opened by his hand claws rending reality veil with tearing fabric sounds, void beyond pulsing return to surface glimpses, but he dragged back, together forever, confront or flee eternal. Emotional break, hug or destroy. Love-hate ward as he pulled into the gate, forms merging forcibly my hand raising shard to strike or embrace. If your brothers possessed return blamed and dragged you into eternal confrontation, hug the monster to absolve or destroy to end the cycle. Drag your family horrors into comments subscribe if sibling shadows haunt. The faith shatters next, notifications for the break. Chapter 14. Shattered Faith. The gate's drag halted abruptly as Luca's claws dug into my merging flesh, his possessed eyes black voids swirling with our shared childhood memories twisted grotesque locked on mine, the hug or destroy dilemma freezing me in soul-rending paralysis, love's remnant urging embrace to absolve, horror's grip screaming strike to sever the cycle. His breath, hot and fetid with right smoke ghosts, washed over my face in waves that evoked the Naples church air thick with Luca's convulsing gasps, emotional on crashing, guilt's tidal wave drowning rational thought, tears mingling with itcher on cheeks, tasting of salt regret and blood blame, every nerve screaming this was the moment save or damn eternally. His form pulsed against mine, skin stretching over demonic bulk with audible creaks like leather bindings splitting, Raw intimacy of brotherly bond corrupted to parasitic fusion, his whisper slithering into ears, choose, Marco, like you chose to hide. Shard raised in trembling hand, but faith's final tether snapped icons materialized in the merging void. Saints' faces weeping blood that dripped viscous and warm on my shoulders, sizzle hissing through vellum skin to brand deeper guilt, St. Peter's keys rusting in the flow, symbol of the church I served now cursing in Italian dialects echoing Vatican corridors, traditor, ipocrita, traitor, hypocrite. Emotional horror amplified Ron. Heart shattered not by claws but self-realization the Vatican my rock was sand, cover UPS like Lucas sealed file now visceral wounds, faith crumbling to dust in mouth tasted bitter as ash from auto da fe pyres, sobs racking body as doubt flooded, was the right divine or delusion. My lifelong skepticism a sin or salvation delayed. Luca laughed, sound a guttural blend of boyish giggle and demonic rumble vibrating our fused forms, claws releasing to shove me back into an icon storm, saints animating with crackling stone joints, eyes glowing accusatory embers that radiated soul-piercing heat, Ghe Ron desecration as Virgin Mary's statue wept, tears turning to acid on contact, etching skin with bubbling furrows that smelled of vinegar and sanctified wine gone rancid, pain layering emotional torment, each drop a memory of prayers unanswered during Luca's death throes, his small hand slipping from mine in the church pew, now replayed in haptic hallucinations, phantom fingers intertwining then dissolving to bone dust sifting through my grasp. Ammon deepened, backward recitation erupted involuntarily from throat, Ave Maria twisting to Aram Eva on lips that blistered under influence, words tasting of forbidden fruit rot, faith inverting to mockery as crosses inverted on walls, spinning with whirlwind winds that whipped hair laced with blood-matted strands, sense shifting to incense inverted sweet to sulphurous nausea evoking Pax betrayal. Horror Ghe Ron visceral, body convulsed in sympathy with Luca's remembered fits, muscles seizing in electric spasms that cracked residual bone fragments embedded from library, pain exploding internal fireworks while doubt whispered, church-trained exorcists like machines, 1,200 active debated as healers or charlatans, my restoration of their manuals complicity in the lie. Luca relunged through the storm, form shifting to mirror my aged guilt face mine but eyes his possessed blacks, blaming hug turning claw embrace that crushed ribs anew with audible snaps, emotional rend, feel the faith fail inside, his voice my own internalized self-loathing, Ghe Ron fusion threatening permanent merge, skins knitting where touched in sticky welds that pulled hairs and nerves in agonizing tugs. Saints cursed louder, Italian profanities from Renaissance popes suppressed letters, Alexander VI's debaucheries debated as legend or fact reigning as auditory assaults, vibrating skull to migraine pulses. Desperation birthed action, grasping a weeping icon shard Peter's key fragment glowing despite curses I shattered a saint's face with it, marble exploding to dust that choked lungs with holy particulate, repelling Luca momentarily with divine backlash sizzle on his skin, peeling layers in Ghe Ron strips that slapped wetly away, revealing demonic underskin pulsing veins of script. Faiths shatter empowered, prayers forward now, in nomine Patris bellowed raw, key thrust into Luca's chest explosion of light weakening portal merges, layers peeling back with tearing velcro sounds, emotional catharsis amid horror, forgiveness glimpsed in his fading eyes, boy Luca fleeting before demon roared back. Collapse began, void quaking with seismic rumbles that loosened icon chunks avalanching like Judgment Day, one crushing my shoulder in crunching agony, bone protruding Ghe Ron white through skin, blood spurting warm fountains while saints melted to waxen puddles that sucked at boots, tripping into the fray. Luca dragged deeper into rupture, final blame, you break everything. But Key's power widened cracks, faith's remnants fueling escape climb through crumbling veils, emotional on lingering, shattered belief leaving void soul deep, Ghe Ron doubt if anything holy remained. If faith's icons cursed your deepest doubts in a brother's embrace, cling to the shards or let the melt consume all. Shatter your crises in comments notifications if belief horrors haunt. The depths escape next, share to spread the ruins. Chapter 15. Escape from the depths. The icon's curses dissolved into wailing echoes as the key shard throbbed in my grip, its glow piercing the merging void like a final absolution, shattering the saints' waxen forms into puddles that bubbled and steamed with acrid holiness gone wrong, their melting faces distorted virgin eyes accusing one last time sliding down walls in Gheron rivulets that tugged at my boots like desperate hands. Luca's fused grasp loosened in the light's backlash, his possessed form recoiling with a howl that blended boyish pain and demonic fury, emotional on spiking, his eyes flickering to the real brother's plea amid the black voids. A split second of the child I failed, guilt lancing deeper than any claw as I wrenched free, skin tearing from the knit merge with wet velcros of dermis separating, blood and itcher mixing in warm dribbles down my arm, tasting metallic regret on lips bitten raw. Faith's remnants fueled the collapse, the void quaked violently, seismic rumbles vibrating through bones already fractured, each tremor a heartbeat of the dying portal echoing my shattered belief, church icons cursing their servant, doubt now a permanent scar soul deep, Gheron whisper persisting, was the key divine or just another archived lie? Stairs materialized in the rupture crumbling spiral of fused stone and spine books, steps slick with icon wax and ink blood that squelched underfoot, sense assaulting in layers, melting wax sweetness turning rancid, undercut by sulfur fades and the earthy damp of ascending earth, air freshening to tantalizing surface hints but tainted with pursuit's breath behind. Entities pursued in final frenzy, Lucademon leading, form shifting mid-leap through crumbling layers, boy to heretic fusion to bone-clad horror, claws scraping walls with chalky screeches that set teeth on edge, his blames choral now with resurrected heretics and skeletons clattering in wake, their moans a cacophony vibrating the stairs, traitor, return. Emotional horror Gheron, each step upward replayed failure's haptic phantom holy water burns on palms, Luca's small hands slipping eternally in memory's grip, tears blurring vision as doubt on, if faith shattered, what climbed now, a man or cursed vessel? Climb desperate, hands grasping railing of vertebrae that animated subtly, fingers biting back with calcium nips drawing blood pinpricks hot and stinging, legs pumping despite thigh gashes from earlier battles oozing warm, muscles cramping in lactic fire while quakes loosened steps, chunks avalanching past with whooshing winds that whipped hair matted with wax and ash, sense of disturbed graves blooming moldy earth. A heretic lung grabbed ankle flesh hand molten from flames, searing calf with blister pops audible over rumbles, pain exploding upward as I kicked free, boot connecting mushy thud that splattered pus scented itcher, Gheron slide nearly toppling me into the abyss where Luca waited below, eyes upward pleading accusing blend breaking heart anew. Frenzy peaked, skeletons swarmed stairs in clattering waves, phalanges rattling like judgment beads, one leaping to tackle impact jarring shoulder already crushed, bone protruding grinding against assailant with crunchy friction, emotional surge, this the end, buried in failures. Key shard thrust repelled a cluster with holy burst light flashing blinding white, bones exploding to dust clouds choking lungs with particulate grave taste, buying seconds to scramble higher, breaths labored wheezes in thinning pursuit echoes. Surface glimpsed, vault door above cracking open to archival fluorescent buzz, Voss's silhouette ambiguous in the light ally or instigator, his rosary clack faint promise or trap. Final leap, Luca's claw raised back, nails raking spine in burning furrows that exposed vertebrae glimpses Gheron white through torn flesh, pain synaptic overload dropping me to knees on threshold, but pull upward door slamming on pursuits with final demonic howl muffled, symbol on arm pulsing wildly still, Voss waiting with eyes that hid complicity or salvation. If a brother's clog raised your escaping soul in faith's ruins, trust the surface light or turn back to confront eternal. Climb your escapes in comments like if the ascent grips. The shadows linger next, share to pull others up. Chapter 16. Lingering Shadows. The vault door slammed shut with a finality that echoed like a confessional seal, the pursuing howls of Lucademon and his frenzied horde cutting off mid-scream into muffled vibrations that thrummed through the iron, fading to whispers that clawed at my eardrums like retreating fingernails on a coffin lid. I collapsed forward onto the familiar archival floor, cool marble veined with papal seals, its anti-static carpet muffling my bloodied knees with a soft give that felt obscenely normal after the abyss, sense shifting instantly from grave-wrought frenzy to the comforting tang of aged paper and faint frankincense from overhead vents. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and clinical, casting long shadows that danced wrong across shelves of neatly bound codices, their gold leaf spines glinting mockingly as if to say, "Welcome home, guardian, or prisoner." Cardinal Voss loomed above, his gaunt face illuminated in the sterile glow, wire-rimmed spectacles reflecting my shattered form, vellum skin peeling in translucent curls that fluttered to the floor like discarded footnotes, embedded shards grinding with each shallow breath, blistered flesh steaming faintly from the climb's residual heat. His rosary clacked softly as he extended a shaky hand, voice a dry rasp, "Marco, you returned the book." Ambiguity hung thicker than the dust. His eyes flickered to the pulsing symbol on my arm, glowing erratically like a faulty fuse, hinting complicity in the summons or mere Vatican protocol. Emotional on surged Ron, was he savior or summoner? Trust fractured further, faith's ruins leaving me hollow, Lucas' final graze on my spine, a phantom itch that whispered blame eternally. You escaped, but I didn't. The Liber Umbrarum lay smoldering in my lap, pages curling to ash that sifted through fingers numb from cold fire burns, each flake tasting of bitter ink and brimstone, regret on lips cracked and weeping. I nodded weakly, Voss retrieving it with gloved reverence, his touch stirring final whispers from the binding, "Porta, non clausa." The gates, not closed. He nodded gravely, crossing himself, but his gaze lingered on my scars, ink veins mapping sins beneath translucent patches, Ron roadmap of bloodline curse that made my stomach churn with self-loathing, mirrors of lost souls now etched internally, reflecting infinite failures, Lucas' convulsing hands slipping, icons cursing, heart merging, each a soul-deep wound festering doubt. Aftermath blurred in Vatican efficiency, medics in white coats discreet, no questions, bandaged wounds that refused to knit fully, antiseptic sting layering over sulfur ghosts, while Voss filed reports in sealed ledgers, his pen scratching like accusatory claws. Rest, Marco. The Church appreciates your service. Words hollow as his smile, emotional horror. Ron, appreciation. For unleashing hell to mend at home. I quit that night, voice hoarse, no more depths. He nodded, but shadows in his eyes promised monitoring, Vatican webs tighter than bone cages. Weeks dissolved into exile, I fled to a remote abbey in the Abruzzo hills, stone walls crumbling like my faith, air crisp with pine and wild herbs that masked phantom brimstone whiffs at odd hours. Dawn chants from monks echoed distant exorcism rites, each ave twisting in my mind to backward curses, on insomnia gripping nights where sleep brought merges, Lucas' face fusing mine in dreams, his black eyes pleading then blaming, waking drenched in sweat tasting of ink tears, symbol on arm pulsing hot flares that burned sheets to wisps. Ron intimacy, mirror reflections showed not just scars but subtle shifts, pupils dilating to voids momentarily, whispers escaping lips unbidden, desk end. Lingering shadows deepened, abbey bells tolled midnight, vibrations sinking to heart throbs from the portal's echo, dust motes swirling into fleeting bone fingers that brushed neck with calcium chills, sense of myrrh masking grave dirt blooms under floorboards. Emotional void Ron, faith's shatter left prayer a mockery kneeling before a crucifix, its wooden Christ wept resin tears that sizzled on my skin, evoking saints acid, doubt whispering, all illusion, like Luke is right. Guilt on eternal, nightmares replayed the hug destroy choice, his clog rays reopening spine wounds psychically, phantom pains radiating to soul, leaving me curled fetal, sobbing apologies to empty air, forgive. I hid, again. Universe hinted spread, a novitiate found an unmarked scroll in the abbey's catacombs, Vatican sealed, edges glowing faintly, whispers emanating, Rossi, next guardian. My symbol flared in response, Ron certainty, curse migrated, gates cracked open elsewhere. Was it real, or the ultimate archive illusion, my mind the final tome, pages of sanity peeling? On climax, staring into Abbey's ancient mirror at dawn, reflection smiled independently, Luca's boyish grin over my aged face, eyes blackening as he mouthed, all just beginning. The nightmare never ended, it relocated. Another Vatican secret calls from the hills beyond, what horror awaits there? Ac mong tuong de ketuk, en hung mot by kich kak dang cho o tu vien ben ken, what Vatican shadow would pull you back in? Drop your lingering dread in the comments, let's archive it together. Subscribe for the sequels that bind us deeper, your watch time seals the gates.